We're out on the golf course this week, a special week. Andrew on property here as work progresses, and Andrew's been on property every week, 1 to 2 days, primarily working to shape features here on the golf course. So we thought we'd talk today about some of these architectural features and Andrew's approach to using the blueprints and the history to restore them to their original state, but also adapting them to really fit today's modern game, consistent with the goals of the project. And so no better spot than here on 18, a really visible place for members coming and going from the club. Andrew, in a really historic green in a lot of ways. In most cases on the golf course, we've kept greens really consistent with their kind of interior contours and recaptured edges, but in places here like 18, we've had to make some adjustments to get some more pin positions. Talk to us about that process and how you really blend the history with, the game today and how to make it work.
Yeah, I think 18 is a great example. We know from the historical documentation that the green was quite a bit different when Bobby Jones won and when Patty Berg made her famous putt as well. And so we had those images, and we know that there were places they both seemed to putt from a lower level up and over this rise to a whole location on this upper level. And when we started to look at that, we looked at the Ross blueprint, we looked at newspaper clippings from the US Open in 1930. We started to see a few things. We started to see this back area that kind of drove in flatter and then had this kind of really graceful flip, very much like a punch bowl kind of backside of the green. And so, it felt like that was something we absolutely needed to go and recapture. And the mounding around the back of 18 had been here, right? Even before we started, there was that remnant left. But something had happened over time. That lower shelf was gone. There was no way for a golf ball to stay, right? If anything, it might be right in the edge of the rough. So when we started to massage the grades, the first thing I did was I looked to see if I could find any physical evidence of how that shelf set. So we dug down and tried to see if there was a difference in layering. What we started to see is that when I got on the machine and started working, that it took a very little bit of effort to create that lower area. And so to my best judgment, really the evolution of the green happened probably in 2 parts. One, in that over years of top dressing and aerification and just the natural evolution of the green, the contours adjusted, it kind of pillowed in the middle, and that impacted the edges. The second thing is that the golf course has seen a few renovations and adjustments, little modifications over time, and I'm sure that things were just tweaked along those edges that led to the final evolution. And so what we really try to do is get this kind of rolled center that's back in the heart of the green, that's reminiscent from the Ross plans and also from the photographic evidence. We drove the flat usable area back into the back corners a bit more. Again, something from the historical documentation. And then we provided that lift in the front that allows a golf ball to rest on that lower level so that once again, members, guests, anybody that comes to play Interlachen can recreate the putt that's so famous from way back in time.
That's awesome, man. It's been fun to watch the evolution. Just recapturing edges in the golf course is going to give way to so much variety and playability.
Yeah, and let's talk about that just for a real quick minute. So many of the greens, the interior contours were perfect. They were great. They're maybe a little on the speedy side here or there, but that's okay. So we really embraced those. I'm thinking a green like 11, we really didn't touch a lot of the interior, but the back left, a little bit on the back right, a little bit front left, just as we went to stretch those edges, we needed to make some modifications to maybe 6 feet into the existing putting surface and then moving out to where it used to be. And so for most of the greens, that was kind of the treatment. Obviously, we had number 1, number 3, 16. Those were kind of fresh looks because they weren't original. And then really everywhere else, it was a combination of photographic evidence that we know what was built and the Ross blueprints. And really the whole mindset is, how do we respect your history? How do we respect the golf course you were playing up until this event? And then how do we protect you for the future?
We'll maybe save 1, 3, and 8 for another time, maybe a little bit more of an Andrew Green original in some respects, but let's head out to 5, one of my kind of favorite changes here on the golf course, and take a look at that green in the bunkers. We've made our way over to hole 5. I've made reference a few times to different favorite holes. 5 may again now be my new favorite hole. A little bit of an island green here with, I think we counted 9 bunkers around the green. Speaking of the green complex, so this was a case in which we got out on the green and really the existing green differed dramatically from the blueprints. Talk to us about how you approach number 5 and what ultimately led to the putting surface we're going to see here, which I think we have described as epic.
On every golf course, there are certain qualities, golf holes, things that are very memorable. And that's what makes really the experience so special. And when we think about Interlachen and when we reviewed the drawings of the greens that Ross had, you flip through and you get to 5 and it's like your just mind explodes with how amazing this green complex was on the drawing. As I looked at the historical pictures, I would have loved to have seen more evidence of exactly that drawing, but I could only catch little glimpses. And if you look hard in some of those old drawings, you'll start to see a little crest in the middle of the green. Certainly you see the bunkers kind of laid out. In my mind, it would have been a huge mistake to avoid the amazing nature of that Ross drawing. We had to do this. And so we really took that drawing and we tried to build it as close to the specifications and notes on that drawing as possible. And so the result is an amazing green complex, one of a kind. No one else has this. It is spectacular. Surrounded by a number of bunkers. Each bunker has its own shape, its own depth, its own size. It's really a testament to Ross and this graceful knoll that he set the green on.
I love it. Well, you talked about the bunkers briefly. Let's spend some time on those. We've talked that over the years our bunkers evolved as well. We had Ross bunkers, we had some Jones bunkers, and then over the last several years, Brian Silva bunkers. Kind of how have you approached the bunkers, and talk to us about the characteristics of those bunkers that'll now be consistent throughout the golf course?
Yeah, and I think for me it was understanding, again, some of the historical documentation. Some of them were very, very simple, maybe depending on the period at which that photo was taken. Some had a bit of an intricate edge, maybe more of a lacy edge or busy. And so what I try to do is kind of think about how do I blend a little bit of both so that as you move through the golf course, the bunkers feel part of a whole, but they have individual personality. And so you're gonna see top lines that are fairly steep, have a little bit of roll, a little bit of three-dimensional character to them. Having a little bit of variety of the amount of grass rolled over, the depth of the bunker, and the flip of the sand, again, gives them interesting character. I think it's really important. And just here in the background, there's 4 bunkers and each one looks totally different, although they all share a similar set of kind of circumstances.
All I know after spending some time, not just with you out here on the golf course, but watching all this work evolve, the variety, the shot value, and the fun factor, from tee to green is going to be incredible. So we'll look forward to that next summer, and we'll look forward to the south side of the golf course greening up even more in the coming weeks and seeing some seed and sod here on the north side. So we appreciate you taking some time.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.